Before we begin, understand this power doesn't always sit in parliaments or palaces. Sometimes it hides in family names, boardrooms, and balance sheets. At Historiq Finance, we uncover the hidden forces where history and money collide, the families, deals, and decisions that shape nations without ever standing for election. Tonight, we're uncovering how one Italian family built influence so deep it rivals governments. And most people have never heard their name. Tonight, something unprecedented is hiding in plain sight across Europe. What I need to tell you about is a single family in Italy that controls Ferrari, Jeep, Chrysler, Maserati, and The Economist. They own a soccer team worth over $2 billion. They control Italy's largest bank. This is not just wealth. This is power that rivals governments. Stay with me, because what's unfolding here is how the Agnelli family has more influence than most elected leaders. And most people have never even heard their name. They're not just Italy's Rockefellers. Make no mistake, they're the family that literally decides if Italy's economy grows or crashes. They control 30% of Italy's stock market, employing over 360,000 people worldwide. And here's the hook that should make every viewer lean in. They got this power by playing every side. Fascists, allies, communists, whoever was winning at the time. This is the wild story of how one family decides the fate of Italy. In Italy, power rarely changes hands, because it passes down bloodlines from palaces to boardrooms. A few families have always pulled the strings behind the scenes: the Benettons in infrastructure, the Pirellis in industry, and the Berlusconis in media. But none of them can match up to the Agnellis. They're basically Italy's industrial royalty, and they've built or taken over the country's most recognized companies, shaped the country's culture, and turned business into power. When discussing the Agnellis, everything begins with Fiat. This car factory became Italy's heartbeat, helping it rise into an industrial powerhouse. And through Fiat, the Agnellis pretty much left their fingerprints on every part of Italian life. At their peak, Gianni Agnelli's companies alone were responsible for almost 8% of Italy's entire GDP. His reach was so wide that government policies often moved in sync with Fiat's business interests. Before the Agnellis became the face of Italian capitalism, they were just a small family in Turin with one bold idea: to build cars for a country that barely had roads. The year was 1899, and Italy was still finding its feet as a new nation. The north was industrializing fast, but much of the country remained rural and poor. That's where Giovanni Agnelli appeared, a man with a military past and an eye for opportunity. While others clung to the past, Agnelli looked toward engines, speed, and industry. Together with a small group of investors, he founded Fabbrica Italiana Automobili Torino Fiat. By 1900, the first factory opened. Agnelli took command as managing director and oversaw 35 workers who built just 24 cars that year. Small by today's standards, but revolutionary at the time. There were barely any roads, no demand, and no market. Agnelli created the industry from scratch. By 1904, production had grown fivefold. By 1906, Fiat was producing over 1,000 cars a year and had already opened a dealership in New York City. That same year, Fiat became a corporation. Giovanni Agnelli gradually seized full control, bought up key patents, and introduced modern production methods that put Fiat ahead of its time. But success came with controversy. In 1908, Fiat was rocked by a financial scandal. Accusations of falsified accounts and inflated share prices forced the board to resign. Giovanni Agnelli was dragged into court, accused of stock manipulation. The case collapsed, but the damage lingered. That experience reshaped him. When World War I broke out, Agnelli moved decisively. He secured military contracts, scaled production, and tied Fiat directly to Italy's war effort. Fiat's factories shifted overnight to producing trucks, tanks, aircraft engines, and weapons. By the height of the war, Fiat employed more than 30,000 workers. The profits were enormous, and so were the accusations. Critics accused Fiat of war profiteering. To protect himself, Agnelli turned to politics and funded a rising nationalist figure, Benito Mussolini. When scrutiny intensified, Mussolini repaid the favor by erasing investigations into Fiat's wartime profits. By the late 1930s, Fiat dominated Italian industry. When World War II began, its factories once again shifted to wartime production, this time for Mussolini's fascist regime and Nazi Germany. As the war turned against Italy, Giovanni Agnelli quietly shifted his allegiance, expressing sympathy for the Allies. After the war, his assets were briefly seized for fascist collaboration, but Fiat was too vital to dismantle. The family survived accountability. Power passed to the next generation. Gianni Agnelli emerged as the new patriarch. By the 1960s, he became one of the most powerful industrialists in Western Europe. He helped rebuild Italy, expanded Fiat globally, and proved that profit could outrun ideology, even partnering with the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Under Gianni, Fiat absorbed Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, Lancia, and Maserati. The company employed hundreds of thousands. Entire Italian cities revolved around its factories. A Fiat job meant stability and status, but economic power had limits. When Agnelli tried to acquire France's Citroën, President Charles de Gaulle blocked the deal. That failure taught the family a critical lesson. Power over narratives mattered as much as power over factories. From there, the Agnellis expanded into media. Through Exor, they acquired major Italian newspapers and later a stake in The Economist. Control over information meant influence far beyond borders. They also moved closer to European power. Through elite lobbying groups and strategic relocations, Exor transformed from an Italian firm into a European holding giant. By the 2020s, the Agnellis held stakes in data, analytics, energy, healthcare, and technology firms shaping policy and markets across the continent. Cultural power completed the empire. Juventus Football Club gave the family emotional loyalty across generations. Ferrari delivered prestige and global recognition. Industry, media, culture, and policy all aligned under one dynasty. Today, under John Elkann, the Agnellis control a multi-billion euro empire embedded deep within Europe's decision-making circles. They don't need public office. Their influence operates quietly, efficiently, and persistently. The Agnellis show us how modern power really works, not through elections, but through patience, networks, and control over systems that never appear on ballots. So tonight, ask yourself this: is Europe truly governed by democracy or by dynasties that never left? Stay informed, stay engaged, stay curious. Historiq Finance.